Chapter number 3, the birth of Lord Krishna. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that his appearance, birth, and activities are all transcendental, and that one who understands them factually becomes immediately eligible to be transferred to the spiritual world. The Lord's appearance or birth is not like that of an ordinary man who is forced to accept a material body according to his past deeds. The Lord's appearance is explained in the second chapter. He appears out of his own sweet pleasure. When the time was mature for the appearance of the Lord, the constellations become very auspicious. The astrological influence of the star known as Rohini was predominant. The star is considered to be very auspicious and is under the direct supervision of Brahma. According to the astrological conclusions, besides the proper situation of the stars, there are auspicious and inauspicious movements due to the different situations of the different planetary systems. At the time of Krishna's birth, the planetary systems were automatically adjusted so that everything became auspicious. At that time, in all directions, east, west, south, north, everywhere, there was an atmosphere of peace and prosperity. There were auspicious stars visible in the sky and on the surface of the earth. In all towns and villages and pasturing grounds, and within the minds of everyone, there were signs of good fortune. The rivers were flowing full of waters, and lakes were beautifully decorated with lotus flowers. The forests were full with beautiful birds and peacocks. All the birds within the forest began to sing with sweet voices, and the peacocks began to dance along with their consorts. The wind blew very pleasantly, carrying the aroma of different flowers, and the sensation of bodily touch was very pleasing. At home, the Brahmanas who were accustomed to offering sacrifices in the fire found their homes very pleasant for offerings. Due to disturbances created by the demoniac kings, the sacrifice of fire had been almost stopped in the houses of Brahmanas. But now they could find the opportunity to start the fire peacefully. Being forbidden to offer sacrifices, the Brahmanas had been very much distressed in mind, intelligence, and activities. But just on the point of Krishna's appearance, automatically their minds become full of joy because they could hear transcendental vibrations in the sky proclaiming the appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The denizens of Gandharva and Kinnara planets begin to sing, and the denizens of Siddhaloka and the planets of Chanaras begin to offer prayers in the service of Personality of Godhead. In the heavenly planets, the angels and the Vayus, along with the Vidyadharas and the Vayus, begin to dance. The great sages and the demigods, being pleased, begin to shower flowers. At the seashore, there was the sound of mild waves, and above the sea, there were clouds in sky which began to thunder very pleasingly. When things were adjusted like this, Lord Vishnu, who is residing within the heart of every living entity, appeared in the darkness of night as the Supreme Personality of Godhead before Devaki, who appeared as one of the demigoddesses. The appearance of Lord Vishnu at that time could be compared to the rising of the full moon over the eastern horizon. The objection may be raised that since Lord Krishna appeared on the 8th day of the waning moon, there could be no rising of the full moon. In answer to this, it may be said that Lord Krishna appeared in the dynasty which is the hierarchy of the moon. Therefore, although the moon was incomplete on that night because of Lord's appearance in the dynasty wherein the moon is himself the original person, the moon was in an overjoyous condition. So by the grace of Krishna, so by the grace of Krishna, one second. Hmm. So by the grace of, which means Lord Krishna appeared in the dynasty which Ragab moon. So by the grace of Krishna, he could appear just like a full moon. In an astronomical treatise by the name Kamanikya, the constellations at the time of the appearance of Lord Krishna are very nicely described. It is confirmed that the child born at that auspicious moment was the Supreme Brahman, or the Absolute Truth. Vasudev saw that wonderful child born as a baby with four hands, holding conch, shell, club, disc, and lotus flower, decorated with the mark of Srivastava, wearing the jeweled necklace of Kastuba stone, dressed in yellow silk, peering dazzling like a bright blackish cloud, wearing a helmet bedecked with Vaidurya stone, valuable bracelets, earrings, and similar other ornaments all over his body, and beautified by an abundance of hair on his head. Due to the extraordinary features of the child, Vasudeva was struck with wonder. How could a newly born child be so decorated? He could therefore understand that Lord Krishna had now appeared, and he became overpowered by the occasion. Vasudeva very humbly wondered that although he was an ordinary living entity, conditioned by material nature, and was externally imprisoned by Kamsa, the all-pervading personality of Godhead, Vishnu or Krishna, had appeared as a child in his home, exactly in his original position. No earthly child is born with four hands, decorated with ornaments and nice clothing, fully equipped with all the signs of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Over and over again, Vasudeva glanced at his child, and he considered how to celebrate this auspicious moment. Generally, when a male child is born, he thought, people observe the occasion with jubilant celebration. And in my home, although I am imprisoned, the Supreme Personality of Godhead has taken birth. How many millions and millions of times should I be prepared to observe this auspicious ceremony? When Vasudeva, who is also called Anakadundubi, was looking at his newborn baby, he was so happy that he wanted to give many thousands of cows in charity to the Brahmanas. According to the Vedic system, whenever there is an auspicious ceremony in the Kshatriya's king's palace, out of joy, the king gives many things in charity. Cows decorated with golden ornaments are delivered to the brahmanas and sages. Vasudeva wanted to perform a charitable ceremony to celebrate Krishna's appearance, but because he was shackled within the walls of Kamsa's prison, this was not possible. Instead, within his mind, he gave thousands of cows to the brahmanas. When Vasudeva was convinced that the newborn child was the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, he bowed down with folded hands and began to offer him prayers. At that time, Vasudeva was in the transcendental position and he became completely free from all fear of Kamsa. The newborn baby was also flashing his effulgence within the room in which he appeared. Vasudeva then began to offer his prayers. My dear Lord, my dear Lord, I can understand who you are. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the supersoul of all living entities, and the absolute truth. You have appeared in your own eternal form, which is directly perceived by us. I understand that because I'm afraid of Kamsa, you have appeared just to deliver me from that fear. You do not belong to this material world. You are the same person who brings about the cosmic manifestation simply by glancing over material nature. One may argue that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who creates the whole cosmic manifestation simply by his glance, cannot come within the womb of Devaki, the wife of Vasudeva. To eradicate this argument, Vasudeva said, My dear Lord, it is not a very wonderful thing that you have appeared within the womb of Devaki, because the creation was also made in that way. You were lying in the causal ocean of Mahavishnu, and by your breathing process, innumerable universes came into existence. Then you entered into each of the universes as Garbhodakshai Vishnu. Then again you expanded yourself as Shirodakshai Vishnu and entered into the hearts of all living entities and even into the atoms. Therefore, your entrance into the womb of Devaki is understandable in the same way. You appear to have entered, but you are simultaneously all pervading. We can understand your entrance and non-entrance from material examples. The total material energy remains intact even after being divided into 16 elements. The material body is nothing but the combination of the five gross elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, and ether. Whenever there is a material body, it appears that such elements are newly created. But actually, the elements are always existing outside of the body. Similarly, although you appear as a child in the womb of Devaki, you are also existing outside. You are always in your abode, but still you can simultaneously expand yourself into millions of forms. One has to understand your appearance with great intelligence because the material energy is also emanating from you. You are the original source of the material energy, just as the sun is the source of the sunshine. The sunshine cannot cover the sun globe, nor can the material energy. Being an emanation from you covers you. You appear to be in the three modes of material energy, but actually the three modes of material energy cannot cover you. This is understood by the highly intellectual philosophers. In other words, although you appear to be within the material energy, you are never covered by it. We hear from the Vedic version that the Supreme Personality of Goddess, Supreme Brahman, exhibits his effulgence, and therefore everything becomes illuminated. We can understand from Brahma Samhita that Brahma Jyoti or Brahman effulgence emanates from the body of the Supreme Lord. And from the Brahman effulgence, all creation take place. It is also stated in Bhagavad Gita that the Lord is the support of Brahman effulgence. Therefore, originally, he is the root cause of everything. But the person who are less intelligent think that when the Supreme Personality of Godhead comes within this material world, he accepts the material qualities, such as such conclusions are not very mature, but are made by the less intelligent. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is directly and indirectly existing everywhere. He is outside this material creation and he is also within it. He is within this material creation not only as Garbhodakshai Vishnu, he is also within the atom. The existence of the atom is due to his presence. Nothing can be separated from its existence. In the Vedic injunctions, we find that the Supreme Soul, or the root cause of everything, has to be searched out because nothing exists independently of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, the material manifestation is also a transformation of his potency. Both inert matter and the living force, the soul, are emanations from him. Only the foolish conclude that when the Supreme Lord appears, he accepts the conditions of matter. Even if he appears to have accepted a material body, he is still not subjected to any material conditions. Krishna has therefore appeared and defeated all imperfect conclusions about the appearance and disappearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. My Lord, your appearance, existence, and disappearance are beyond the influence of the material qualities. Because your Lordship is the Supreme Brahman and the controller of everything, there is nothing inconceivable or contradictory in you. As you have said, material nature works under your superintendence, just like a government officer working under the orders of the chief executive. The influence of subordinate activities cannot affect you. Since you are the Supreme Brahman, everything is existent within you. And since all the activities of material nature are controlled by your Lordship, none of these activities affect you. You are called Shukalam or whiteness, is a symbolic representation of the absolute truth, which is unaffected by material qualities. Lord Brahma is called Rak or red because Brahma represents the quality of passion for creation. Darkness is entrusted to Lord Shiva because he annihilates the cosmos. The creation, annihilation, and maintenance of this cosmic manifestation are conducted by your potencies. Yet you are always unaffected by those qualities. As confirmed in the Vedas, Harir Hi Nirguna Shakshat, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always free from all material qualities. It is also said that the qualities of passion and ignorance are non-existent in the person of the Supreme Lord. My Lord, you are the Supreme Controller, the Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Great, maintaining the order of this cosmic manifestation. Yet, in spite of your being Supreme Controller, you have so kindly appeared in my home. The purpose of your appearance is to kill the followers of demoniac rulers of the world, who are in the dress of royal princes, but are actually demons. I'm sure that you will kill all of them and their followers and soldiers. I understand that you have appeared in order to kill the uncivilized Kamsa and his followers. But knowing that you are to appear in order to kill him and his followers, he has already killed so many of your predecessors, your elder brothers. Now he is simply awaiting the news of your birth. As soon as he hears about it, he will immediately appear with all kinds of weapons to kill me. After this prayer of Vasudeva, Devaki, the mother of Krishna, offered her prayers. She was very frightened because of her brother's atrocities. Devaki said, my dear Lord, eternal forms like Narayana, Lord Rama, Hayashasha, Varaha, Nrsimha, Vamana, Baldeva, and millions of similar incarnations emanating from Vishnu are described in the Vedic literature as original. You are the original because all your forms as incarnations are outside of this material creation. Your form was existing before this cosmic manifestation was created. Your forms are eternal and all-pervading. They are also self-effulgent, changeless, and uncontaminated by the material qualities. Such eternal forms are ever cognizant and full of bliss. They are situated in transcendental goodness and are always engaged in different pastimes. You are not limited to particular form only. All such transcendental, eternal forms are self-sufficient. I can understand that you are the Supreme Lord Vishnu. After many millions of years, when Lord Brahma comes to the end of his life, the annihilation of the cosmic manifestation take place. At that time, the five elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, and ether, enter into the Mahatattva. Mahatattva then enters by the force of time into the non-manifested total material energy. The total material energy enters into the energetic pradhan, and pradhan enters into you. Therefore, after annihilation of the whole cosmic manifestation, you alone remain with your transcendental name, form, qualities, and form, and paraphernalia. My Lord, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you because you are the director of the unmanifested total energy and the ultimate reservoir of the material nature. My Lord, the whole cosmic manifestation is under the influence of time, beginning from the moment up to the duration of the year. All act under your directions. You are the original director of everything and the reservoir of all potent energies. All the conditioned souls are continually fleeing from one body to another and one planet to another, yet they do not get free from the onslaught of birth and death. But when one of these fearful living entities comes under the shelter of your lotus feet, he can lie down without anxiety of being attacked by formidable death. This statement by Devaki is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita by the Lord himself. The Lord says that even after traveling all over the universe, from Brahmaloka to Pathaloka, one cannot escape the attack of birth, death, disease, and old age. But one who enters the kingdom of God, the Lord says, is never again obliged to come to the material world. Therefore, my Lord, I request you to save me from the cruel hands of Kamsa, the son of Ugrasen. I am now praying to your Lordship to please rescue me from this fearful condition, because you are always ready to give protection to your servitors. The Lord has confirmed this statement in Bhagavad Gita by assuring Arjuna, you may declare to the world, my devotee shall never be vanquished. While thus praying to the Lord for rescue, Mother Devaki nonetheless expressed her motherly affection. I understand that this transcendental form is generally perceived in meditation by the great sages, but I am still afraid because as soon as Kamsa understands that village that you have appeared, he might harm you. So I request that from the time being you become invisible to material eyes. In other words, she requested Lord to assume the form of an ordinary child. My only cause of fear from my brother Kamsa is due to your appearance. My Lord Madhusudana, I wish that Kamsa may not learn that you are already born. Therefore, I request you to conceal the four-armed form of your Lordship, which holds the four symbols of Vishnu, namely conch shell, disc, club, and Rajeshwar. Sorry. Conch shell, disc, club, and lotus flower. My dear Lord, at the end of the annihilation of the cosmic manifestation, you put the whole cosmic universe within your abdomen. Still, by your unalloyed mercy, you appear in my womb. I'm surprised that you imitate the activities of ordinary human being just to please your devotee. We have His Grace, Paramatma Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. On hearing the prayers of Devaki, the Lord replied, my dear mother, in the millennium of Swayambhuva Manu, my father, Vasudeva, was living as one of the Prajapatis. His name at that time was Sutapa, and you were his wife named Prishni. At that time, when Lord Brahma was desiring to increase the population, he requested you to generate offspring. You controlled your senses and performed severe austerities. By practicing the breathing exercise of the yoga system, both you and your husband could tolerate all the influences of material laws, the rainy season, the onslaught of the wind, and the scorching heat of the sunshine. You also executed all religious principles. In this way, you were able to cleanse your heart and control the influences of the material laws. In executing your austerity, you used to eat only the leaves of the trees which fell to the ground. Wow. Then, with a steady mind and controlled sex drive, you worshipped me, desiring some wonderful benediction from me. Both of you practiced severe austerities for 12,000 years by the calculation of the demigods. Hari Hari. During that time, your mind was always absorbed in me when you were executing devotional service and always thinking of me within your heart. I was very much pleased with you. O sinless mother, your heart is therefore always pure. At that time, also I appeared before you in this form just to fulfill your desire. And I asked you to ask whatever you under the influence of my energy, you asked me to become your son. In other words, to appear in the material world, the Lord selected his mother and father, namely Prishni and Sutapa. When the Lord comes as a human being, he must have a mother and a father. So he selected Prishni and Sutapa to be his mother and father perpetually. And Prishni or Sutapa could ask the Lord for liberation. Liberation is not so important as the transcendental loving service of the Lord. The Lord could have awarded Prishni and Sutapa immediate liberation, but he preferred to keep them within this material world for his different appearances, as we explained in the following verses. On receiving the benediction from the Lord to become his father and mother, Sutapa and Prishni retired from the activities of austerities and lived as a husband and wife in order to beget a child who was the Supreme Lord himself. In due course of time, Prishni became pregnant and gave birth to the child. The Lord spoke to Devaki and Vasudeva. At that time, my name was Prishni Garbha. In the next millennium, you took birth as Aditi and Kashyapa, and I became your child of the name Upendra. At that time, my form was just like a dwarf, and for this reason, I was known as Vamana Deva. I gave you the benediction that I would take birth as your son 3 times. The first time I was known as Prishni Garbha, born of Prishni and Sutapa. In the next birth, I was Upendra, born of Aditi and Kashyapa. And now the third time, I am born as Krishna from you, Devaki and Vasudeva. I have appeared in Vishnu form just to convince you that I am the same Supreme Personality of Godhead again taken birth. I could have appeared just as like an ordinary child, but in that way, you would not have believed that the Supreme Personality of Godhead had taken birth in your womb. My dear father and mother, you have therefore raised me many times as your child with great affection and love, and I am therefore very much pleased and obliged to you. And I assure you that this time you shall go back home, back to Godhead on account of your perfection in your mission. I know you are very concerned about me and afraid of Kamsa. Therefore, I order you to take me immediately to Gokula and exchange me for the daughter who has just been born to Yeshoda. Having spoken thus to his father and mother, the Lord turned himself into an ordinary child in their presence and remained silent. Being ordered by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva prepared to take his son from the delivery room, and exactly at the time the daughter was born to Nanda and Yashoda. She was Yoga Maya, the internal potency of the Lord. By the influence of the internal potency, Yoga Maya, all the residents of the Kamsa's palace, especially the doorkeepers, were overwhelmed with deep sleep, and all the palace doors opened, although they were barred and shackled with iron chains. The night was very dark, but as soon as Vasudeva took Krishna on his lap and went out, He could see everything just as in the sunlight. In the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it is said that Krishna is just like sunlight, and that wherever there is Krishna, the illusory energy which is compared to darkness cannot remain. When Vasudeva was carrying Krishna, the darkness of the night disappeared. All the prison doors automatically opened. At the same time, there was thunder in the sky and severe rainfall. While Vasudeva was carrying his son Krishna in the falling rain, Lord Shesha, in the shape of a serpent, spread his hood over the head of Vasudeva so that he would not be hampered by the rainfall. Vasudeva came onto the bank of Yamuna and saw that the water of Yamuna was roaring with waves and that the whole span was full of foam. Still, in that furious feature, the river gave passage to Vasudeva to cross, just as the great Indian Ocean gave a path to Lord Ramachandra when he was bridging over the Gulf. In this way, Vasudeva crossed the river Yamuna. On the other side, he went to the place of Nanda Maharaj, situated in Gokula, where he saw that all the cowherd men were fast asleep. He took the opportunity to silently enter the house of Yashoda, and without difficulty, he exchanged his son for the baby girl newly born there. Then, after entering the house very silently and exchanging the boy for the girl, he returned to the prison of Kamsa and silently put the girl on the lap of Devaki. He again clamped the shackles on himself so that Kamsa could not recognize that so many things had happened. Mother Yashoda understood that a child had been born to her, but because she was very tired from the labor of childbirth, she fell fast asleep. When she awoke, she could not remember whether she had given birth to a male or a female child. Thus ends the Bhakti Vedanta purport of the third chapter of Krishna, the birth of Lord Shri Krishna. Shri Shri Kishore Kishore Ki Jai. Chapter number 4, Kamsa begins his persecutions. After Vasudeva adjusted things as they had all the doors and the gates became similarly closed. The gatekeepers awoke and heard the newborn child crying. Kamsa was waiting to hear the news of the child's birth, and gatekeepers immediately approached him and informed him that the child was born. At that time, Kamsa got up from his bed very quickly and exclaimed, "Now the cruel death of my life is born." Kamsa became perplexed now that his death was approaching and his hair scattered. Immediately, he proceeded towards the place where the child was born. Devaki, on seeing her brother approaching, prayed in a very meek attitude to Kamsa. "My dear brother, please do not kill this female child. I promise that this child will be the wife of your son. Therefore, don't kill her. You are not to be killed by any female child. The omen was that you are to be killed by a male child. So please do not kill her. My dear brother, you have killed so many of my children who were just born, shining like sun. That is not your fault. You have been advised by demonic friend to kill my children. But now I beg you to excuse this girl at least. Let her live as my daughter." Kamsa was so cruel that he did not listen to the pitiful prayers of his sister Devaki. He forcibly grabbed the newborn child to rebuke his sister and attempted to dash her on a stone mercilessly. This is a graphic example of a cruel demon who could sacrifice all relationships for the sake of personal gratification. But the child immediately slipped out of his hands, went up into the sky, and appeared with 8 arms as the younger sister of Vishnu. She was decorated with nice garments and flower garlands and ornaments. In her 8 hands, she held a bow, lance, arrows, sword, conch shell, disc, club, and a shield. Seeing the appearance of the child who was actually the goddess Durga, all the demigods from different planets like Siddhaloka, Charanaloka, Gandharvaloka, Apsaraloka, Kinnaraloka, and Uragaloka presented her with various articles and began to offer their respective prayers. From above, the goddess addressed Kamsa. You rascal, how can you kill me? The child who will kill you is already born before me somewhere within this world. Don't be so cruel to your poor sister. After this appearance, goddess Durga became known by various names in various parts of the world. After hearing these words, Kamsa became very much overwhelmed with fear. Out of pity, he immediately released Vasudeva and Devaki from the bondage of their shackles and very politely began to address them. He said, My dear sister and brother-in-law, I have acted just like a demon in killing my own nephews, your children, and thereby I have given up all consideration of our intimate relationship. I do not know what will be the results of these envious acts of mine. Probably I shall be sent to the hell where killers of Brahmanas go. I am surprised, however, that the celestial prophecy has not come true. It is not only in human society that false propaganda is found. Now it appears that even the celestial denizens speak lies. Because I believed in the words of the celestial denizens, I have committed so many sins by killing the children of my sister. My dear Vasudeva and Devaki, you are both very great souls. I have no instruction to give you, but still, I request that you not be sorry for the death of your children. Every one of us is under the control of superior power, and that superior power does not allow us to remain together. We are bound to be separated from our friends and relatives in due course of time. But we must know for certain that even after the disappearance of the different material bodies, the soul remains intact eternally. For example, there are many pots made of earthly clay and they are prepared and also broken. But in spite of this, the earth remains as it is perpetually. Similarly, the bodies of the soul under different conditions are made and destroyed, but the spirit soul remains eternally. So there is nothing to lament over. Everyone should understand that this material body is different from spirit soul. And so long as one does not come to that understanding, he is sure to accept the process of transmigration from one body to another. My dear sister Devaki, you are so gentle and kind. Please excuse me. Don't be aggrieved by the death of your children, which I have caused. Actually, this was not done by me because all these are predestined activities. One has to act according to the predestined plan, even unwillingly. Please misunderstand people misunderstand that with the end of the body, the self dies, or they think that one can kill another living entity. All these misconceptions oblige one to accept the conditions of the material existence. In other words, as long as one is firmly convinced of the eternality of the soul, one is subjected to the tribulations of being killer and killed. My dear sister Devaki and brother-in-law Vasudeva, kindly excuse the atrocities I have committed against you. I am very poor-hearted and you are so great-hearted. So take compassion upon me and excuse me. While Kamsa was speaking to his brother-in-law and sister, tears flowed from his eyes and he fell down at their feet. Believing the words of Durga Devi, whom he had tried to kill, Kamsa immediately released his brother-in-law and sister. He personally unlocked the iron shackles and very sympathetically showed his friendship for his family members. When Devaki saw her brother so repentant, she also became pacified and forgot all atrocious activities against her children. Vasudeva also, forgetting all past incidents, spoke smilingly with his brother-in-law. Vasudeva told Kamsa, "My dear fortunate brother-in-law, what you are saying about the material body and the soul is correct. Every living entity is born ignorant, misunderstanding this material body to be his self. This conception of life is due to ignorance, and on the basis of this ignorance, we create enmity or friendship, lamentation, jubilation, fearfulness, envy, greedy, illusion, and madness are different features of material concept of life. A person influenced like this engages in enmity only due to the material body. Being engaged in such activities, we forget our eternal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vasudeva took the opportunity of Kamsa's benevolence and informed him that this atheistic activities were also due to this misconception of life, namely taking the material body to be self. When Vasudeva talked with Kamsa in such an illuminating way, Kamsa became very pleased and his guilt for killing his nephews subsided. With the permission of his sister Devaki and brother-in-law Vasudeva, he returned to his home with a relieved mind. But the next day, Kamsa called all his counselors together and narrated to them all the incidents that had happened the night before. All the counselors of Kamsa were demons and eternal enemies of the demigods. So they become depressed upon hearing their master speak of the night's events. And although they were not very much experienced or learned, they began to give instructions to Kamsa as follows. Dear sir, let us now make arrangements to kill all children who were born within the last 10 days in all towns, counties, villages, and pasturing grounds. Let us execute this plan indiscriminately. We think that the demigods cannot do anything against us. If we perform these atrocities, they are always afraid of fighting with us. And even if they wish to check our activities, they will not dare to do so because of your immeasurable strength. They fear your bow. Indeed, we have practical experience that whenever you stood to fight with them and began to shower your arrows on them, they immediately fled in all directions just to save their lives. Many of the demigods were unable to fight with you, and they immediately surrendered themselves unto you by losing their turbans and the tufts of hair on their heads. With the folded hands, they begged you to spare them and said, My Lord, we are all afraid of your strength. Please release us from this dangerous fight. We have also seen many times that you would never kill such surrendered fighters when they were all fearful, their bows and arrows and chariots broken, forgetful of their military activities and unable to fight with you. So, actually, we have nothing to fear from these demigods. They are very proud of being great fighters in peacetime outside the war field, but actually they cannot show any talent or military power on the war field. Although Lord Vishnu, Lord Shiva, and Lord Perform all are always ready to help the demigods headed by Indra, we have no reason to be afraid of them. As far as Lord Vishnu is concerned, he has already hidden himself within the hearts of all living entities and he cannot come out. As far as Lord Shiva is concerned, he has renounced all activities. He has already entered into the forest. And Lord Brahma is always engaged in different types of austerities and meditation. And what to speak of Indra? He is a straw in comparison to your strength. Therefore, we have nothing to fear from any of these demigods, but we must not neglect them, for the demigods are our determined enemies. We must be careful to protect ourselves, to root them out from this very existence. We should just engage ourselves in their service and be always ready for your command. Thank you so much, Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. This, right? Yeah. Yeah, that's okay. The demons continue to say, if there is some disease in the body which is neglected, it worsens and becomes incurable. Similarly, when one is not careful about restraining the senses and lets them loose, it is then very difficult to control them. Therefore, we must be very careful of the demigods before they get too strong to be subdued. The foundation of the strength of the demigods is Lord Vishnu, because the ultimate goal of all religious principles is to satisfy him. The Vedic injunctions, the Brahmanas, the cows, austerity, sacrifices, performances of charity, and distribution of wealth are all for the satisfaction of Lord Vishnu. So let us immediately begin by killing all the Brahmanas who are in charge of the Vedic knowledge, along with the great sages who are in charge of sacrificial ritualistic performances. Let us kill all the cows which are the source of butter, which is so necessary for performing sacrifices. Please give us your permission to kill all these creatures. Actually, the limbs of the transcendental body of Lord Vishnu are the Brahmanas, the cows, Vedic knowledge, austerity, truthfulness, sense and mind control, faithfulness, charity, tolerance, and performance of sacrifices. Lord Vishnu is situated in everyone's heart and is the leader of all demigods, including Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma. Therefore, we think that to persecute the great sages and Brahmanas is to kill Lord Vishnu. Thus, being advised by his demoniac ministers, Kamsa, who was from the very beginning the greatest rascal, decided to persecute the Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, being entrapped by the shackles of all devouring eternal time. He ordered the demons to harass all kinds of saintly persons, and then he entered his house. The adherents of Kamsa were all influenced by the mode of passion as well as illusioned by the mode of ignorance, and their only business was to create enmity with saintly persons. Such activities can only reduce one's durations of life. The demons accelerated the process and invited their deaths as soon as possible. The result of persecuting saintly person is not only ultimately death. The act is so offensive that the perpetrator also gradually loses his beauty, his fame, and his religious principles, and thus his promotion to larger planets is checked, to higher planets is checked. Driven by various kinds of mental concoctions, the demons diminish all kinds of auspiciousness. An offense at the lotus feet of the devotee and brahmanas is a greater offense than that committed to the lotus feet of Supreme Personality of Godhead. A civilization that commits such sinful activities generally loses all faith in the Supreme Lord, and such a godless civilization becomes the source of all calamities in human society. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the fourth chapter of chapter of Krishna. Kamsa begins his persecution. Chapter 5, the meeting of Nanda and Vasudeva. Although Krishna was the real son of Vasudeva and Devaki, because of Kamsa's atrocious activities, Vasudeva could not enjoy the birth ceremony of his son, but Nanda Maharaj, the foster father, celebrated the birth ceremony of Krishna very joyfully. The next day, it was declared that the male child had been born to Yashoda. According to Vedic custom, Nanda Maharaj called for learned astrologers and brahmanas to perform the birth ceremony. After the birth of a child, the astrologers calculate the moment of the birth and make a horoscope of the child's future life. Before the birth ceremony, the family members take bath, cleanse themselves, and decorate themselves with ornaments and nice garments. Then they come before the child and the astrologer to hear of the future life of the child. Nanda Maharaj and other members of the family dressed and sat down in front of the birthplace. All the Brahmanas who were assembled there on this occasion chanted auspicious mantras according to the rituals while the astrologers performed the birth ceremony. All the demigods are also worshipped on this occasion, as well as the forefathers of the family. Nanda Maharaj distributed to the Brahmanas 200,000 cows, which were well decorated with cloth and ornaments. He gave the Brahmanas not only cows and charity, but also hills of grain decorated with ornaments and golden bordered cloth. In the material world, we possess riches and wealth in many ways, but sometimes not in very honest and pious ways, because that is the nature of the accumulating wealth. According to Vedic injunction, therefore, one should purify such wealth by giving cows and gold in charity to the Brahmanas. A newborn child is also purified by gifts of grains and charity to the Brahmanas. In this material world, it is to be understood that we are always living in a contaminated state. We therefore have to purify the duration of our lives, our possession of wealth, and ourselves. We can purify our duration of life by taking a daily bath and cleansing the body inside and outside and accepting the 10 kinds of purificatory processes. By austerities, by worship of the Lord, and by distribution of the charity, we can purify the possession of wealth. We can purify ourselves by studying the Vedas in order to understand the absolute truth and achieve self-realization. It is therefore stated in the Vedic literature that by birth everyone is born a Shudra, that by accepting the purificatory processes one becomes twice born, and by studying the Vedas one becomes a Vipra, which is the preliminary qualification for becoming a Brahmana, and that when one perfectly understands the absolute truth, he becomes a Brahmana. And when the Brahmana reaches further perfection, he becomes a Vaishnava or a devotee. In Krishna's birth ceremony, all the assembled Brahmanas began to chant different kinds of Vedic mantras to invoke all good fortune for the child. There are different kinds of chanting known as Sutta, Magda, Vandi, and Virudhava. Along with this chanting of mantras and songs, bugles and kettle drums sounded outside the house. On this occasion, the joyous vibrations could be heard in all the pasturing grounds and all the houses. Within and outside the houses, we have a varieties of artistic paintings done with rice pulp, and scented water was sprinkled everywhere, even on the roads and streets. Ceilings and roofs were decorated with different kinds of flags, festoons, and green leaves. The gates were made of green leaves and flowers. All the cows, bulls, and calves were smeared with a mixture of oil and turmeric and painted with minerals like red oxide, yellow clay, and manganese. They wore garlands of peacock feathers and were covered with nice colored cloths and gold necklaces. When all the ecstatic cowherd men heard that Nanda Maharaj, his father Krishna, was celebrating the birth ceremony of his son, they became spontaneously joyful. They dressed themselves with very costly garments and ornamented their bodies with different kinds of earrings and necklaces and wore great turbans on their heads. After dressing themselves in this gorgeous way, they took various kinds of presentations and thus approached the house of Nanda Maharaj. As soon as they heard that Mother Yashoda had given birth to a child, all the cowherd women became overwhelmed with joy, and they also dressed themselves with various kinds of costly garments and ornaments and smeared scented cosmetic on their bodies. As the dust on the lotus flower exhibits the exquisite beauty of the flower, all the gopis, cowherd women, applied the dust of kunkuma on their lotus-like faces. These beautiful gopis took their different presentations and very soon reached the house of Maharaj Nanda. Overburdened with their heavy hips and swollen breasts, the gopis could not proceed very quickly toward the house of Nanda Maharaj, but out of ecstatic love for Krishna, they proceeded as quickly as possible. The ears were decorated with pearl rings, their necks with jeweled lockets, their lips and eyes with different kinds of lipstick and ointment, and their hands with nice golden bangles. As they were very hastily passing over the stone road, the flower garlands which were decorating their bodies fell to the ground, and it appeared that a shower of flowers was falling from the sky. From the movement of different kinds of ornaments on their bodies, they were looking still more beautiful. In this way, They all reached the house of Nanda Yashoda and blessed the child. Dear child, you live long just to protect us. While they were blessing the child Krishna in this way, they offered a mixture of turmeric powder oil, yogurt, milk, and water. They sprinkled this mixture not only on the body of child Krishna, but on other persons who were present there. Also, on that auspicious occasion, there were different bands of expert musicians playing. When the cowherd men saw the pastimes of the cowherd women, they became very joyful, and in response, they also began to throw yogurt, milk, clarified butter, and water upon the bodies of the gopis. When both parties began to throw butter on each other's bodies, Nanda Maharaj was also very happy to see the pastimes of the cowherd men and women, and he became very liberal in giving charity to the different singers who were assembled there. Some singers were reciting great verses from Upanishads and Puranas, some were glorifying the family ancestors, some were singing very sweet songs. There were also many learned Brahmanas present, and Nanda Maharaj, being very satisfied on this occasion, gave them different kinds of garments, ornaments, and cows and charity. It is very important to know that in this connection how wealthy the inhabitants of Vrindavana were simply by raising cows. All the cowherd men belonged to the Vaishya community, and their businesses was to protect the cows and cultivate crops. By their dress and ornaments and by their behavior, it appears that although they were in a small village, they will still be rich in material possessions. They possess such an abundance of various kinds of milk products that they were throwing butters lavishly on each other's bodies without restriction. Their wealth was in milk, yogurt, clarified butter, and many other milk products. And by trading the agricultural products, they were rich in various kinds of jewelry, ornaments, and costly garments. Not only did they possess all these things, but they could give them away in charity lavishly, as did Nanda Maharaj. Thus, Nanda Maharaj, the foster father of Lord Krishna, began to satisfy the desires of all the men assembled there. He respectfully received them and gave them in charity whatever they desired. They learned Brahmanas who had no other source of income. They are completely dependent on Vaishya community for their maintenance, and they received gifts on such festive occasions as birthdays and marriages. While Nanda Maharaj was worshipping Lord Vishnu on this occasion and was trying to satisfy all the people there, his only desire was that the newborn child Krishna would be happy. Nanda Maharaj had no knowledge that this child was the origin of Vishnu. He was praying to Lord Vishnu to protect him. Rohini Devi, the mother of Balaram, was the most fortunate wife of Vasudeva. She was away from her husband, yet just to congratulate Maharaj Nanda on the occasion of the birth ceremony of his son Krishna, she dressed herself very nicely. Wearing a garland, a necklace, and other bodily ornaments, she appeared on the scene and moved hither and thither. According to the Vedic system, a woman whose husband is not at home does not dress herself very nicely. But although Rohini's husband was away, she still dressed herself very nicely on this occasion. From the opulence of the birth ceremony of Krishna, it is very clear that at that time, Vrindavana was rich in every respect. Because Lord Krishna took birth in the house of King Nanda and Mother Yashoda, the goddess of fortune was obliged to manifest her opulences in Vrindavana. It appeared that Vrindavana had already become a site for the pastimes of the goddess of fortune. After the birth ceremony, Nanda Maharaj decided to go to Mathura to pay the annual tax to the government of Kamsa. Before leaving, he called for the able cowherd men of the village and asked them to take care of Vrindavana in his absence. When Nanda Maharaj arrived at Mathura, Vasudeva got the news and was very eager to congratulate his friends. He immediately went to the place where Nanda Maharaj was staying. When Nanda saw Vasudeva, he felt that he had regained his life. Nanda, overwhelmed with joy, immediately stood up and embraced Vasudeva. Vasudeva was received very warmly and offered a nice place to sit. Anxious about his two sons, who had been put under the protection of Nanda, without Nanda's knowledge, Vasudeva inquired about them with great anxiety. Both Balaram and Krishna were the sons of Vasudeva. Balaram was transferred to the womb of Rohini, Vasudeva's own wife. but Rohini was kept under the protection of Nanda Maharaj. Krishna was personally delivered to Yashoda in exchange for her daughter. Nanda Maharaj knew that Balaram was the son of Vasudeva, but he did not know that Krishna was also Vasudeva's son. Vasudeva, of course, was aware of this fact and inquired very eagerly about both Krishna and Balaram. Vasudeva then addressed Nanda. My dear brother, you were old and very anxious to beget a son, and yet you had none. Now, by the grace of the Lord, you are fortunate to have a very nice son. I think that this incident is very auspicious for you. Dear friend, I was imprisoned by Kamsa, and now I'm released. Therefore, this is another birth for me. I had no hope of seeing you again, but by God's grace, I can see you. In this way, Vasudeva indirectly expressed his anxiety about Krishna. Krishna was sent incognito to the bed of Mother Yashoda, and after Nanda very pompously celebrated Krishna's birth ceremony, he went to Mathura. So Vasudeva was very much pleased and said, this is a new birth for me. He never expected that Krishna would live because all his other sons had been killed by Kamsa. Vasudeva continued, my dear friend, it is very difficult for us to live together. Although we have our family and relatives, sons and daughters, by nature's way we are generally separated from one another. The reason for this is that every living entity appears on this earth under different pressures of fruitive activities. Although they are assembled together, there is no certainty of their remaining together for a long time. According to one's fruitive activities, one has to act differently and thereby be separated. For example, many plants and creepers are floating on the waves of the ocean. Sometimes they come together and sometimes they separate forever. One plant goes one way and another plant goes another. Similarly, our family assembly may be very nice while we are living together, but after some time, in the course of the waves of time, we are separated. The purport of this expression by Vasudeva is this: although he had 8 sons born in the womb of Devaki, unfortunately they were all gone. He could not even keep his one son Krishna with him. Vasudeva was feeling his separation, but he could not express the real fact. Please tell me about the welfare of Vrindavana, he said. You have many animals. Are they happy? Are they getting sufficient grass and water? Please also let me know whether the place where you are now living is undisturbed and peaceful. This inquiry was made by Vasudeva because he was very anxious about Krishna's safety. He knew that Krishna and his followers were trying to he knew that Kamsa and his followers were trying to kill Krishna by sending various kinds of demons. They had already resolved that all children born within 10 days of the birthday of Krishna should be killed. Because Vasudeva was so anxious about Krishna, he inquired about the safety of his residents. He also inquired about Balaram and his mother Rohini, who were entrusted to the care of Nanda Maharaj. Vasudeva also reminded Nanda Maharaj that Balaram did not know his real father. He knows you as his father. And now you have another child, Krishna, and I think you are taking very nice care of both of them. It is also significant that Vasudeva inquired about the welfare of Nanda Maharaj animals. The animals, and especially the cows, were protected exactly in the manner of one's children. Vasudeva was a Kshatriya and Nanda Maharaj was a Vaishya. It is the duty of the Kshatriyas to give protection to the citizens, and it is the duty of Vaishyas to give protection to the cows. The cows are as important as the citizens. Just as the human citizens should be given all kinds of protection, so the cows also should be given full protection. Vasudeva continued to say that the maintenance of religious principles, economic development, and the satisfactory execution of meeting the demands of the senses depend on cooperation among relatives, nations, and all humanity. Therefore, it is everyone's duty to see that his fellow citizens and the cows are not put into difficulty. One should see to the peace and comfort of his fellow man and the animals. The development of the religious principles, economic development, and sense gratification can then be achieved without difficulty. Vasudeva expressed his sorrow due to not being able to give protection to his own sons born of Devaki. He was thinking that the religious principles, economic development, and the satisfaction of his senses were therefore all lost. On hearing this, Nanda Maharaj replied, "My dear Vasudeva, I know that you are very much aggrieved because the cruel King Kamsa has killed all your sons, the born of Devaki. Although the last child was a daughter, Kamsa could not kill her, and she has entered into the celestial planet. My dear friend, do not be aggrieved. We are all being controlled by our past and unseen activities. Everyone is subjected to his past deeds, and one who is conversant with the philosophy of karma and its reactions is a man in knowledge. Such a person will not be aggrieved at any incident, happy or miserable." Vasudeva then replied, "My dear Nanda, if you have already paid the government taxes, then return soon to your palace, because I think that there may be some disturbances in Gokula." After the friendly conversation between Nanda Maharaj and Vasudeva, Vasudeva returned to his home. Nanda Maharaj and the other cowherd men who had come back to Mathura to pay their taxes also returned home. Thus ends Bhaktivedanta purport of the fifth chapter of Krishna, the meeting of Nanda and Vasudeva. Chapter 6, Putana killed. While Nanda Maharaj was returning home, he considered Vasudeva's warning that there might be some disturbance in Gokula. Certainly the advice was friendly and not false, so Nanda thought. There is some truth in it. Therefore, out of fear, he began to take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is quite natural for a devotee in danger to think of Krishna, because he has no other shelter. When a child is in danger, he takes shelter of his mother and father. Similarly, a devotee always under the shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but when he specifically sees some danger, he remembers the Lord very rapidly. After consulting with his demoniac ministers, Kamsa instructed a witch named Putana, who knew the black art of killing small children by ghastly sinful methods, to kill all kinds of children in the cities, villages, and pasturing grounds. Such witches can play their black art only where there is no chanting or hearing of the holy name of Krishna. It is said that wherever the chanting of the holy name of Krishna is done, even negligently, all bad elements, witches, ghosts, and dangerous calamities immediately disappear. And this is certainly true to the place where the chanting of the name of Krishna is done seriously, especially in Vrindavana, when the Supreme Lord was personally present. Therefore, the doubts of Nana Maharaj were certainly based on affection for Krishna. Actually, there was no danger from the activities of Putana, despite her powers. Such witches are called Khachari, which means they can fly in the sky. The black art of witchcraft is still practiced by some women in the remote northwestern side of India. They can transfer themselves from one place to another on the branch of an uprooted tree. Putana knew this witchcraft, and therefore she is described in the Bhagavatam as Khachari. Putana entered the country of Gokula, the residential quarter of Nanda Maharaj, without permission. Dressing herself just like a beautiful woman, she entered the house of Mother Yashoda. She appeared very beautiful with raised hips, nicely swollen breasts, earrings, and flowers in her hair. She looked especially beautiful on account of her thin waist. She was glancing at everyone with very attractive looks and smiling face, and all the residents of Vrindavana were captivated. The innocent cowherd women thought that she was goddess of fortune, appearing in Vrindavana with a lotus flower in her hand. It seems to them that she had personally came to see Krishna, who is her husband. Because of her exquisite beauty, no one checked her movement, and therefore she freely entered the house of Nanda Maharaj. Putana, the killer of many, many children, found baby Krishna lying on a small bed, and she could at once perceive that the baby was hiding his unparalleled potencies, which resembled fire covered by ashes. Putana thought, this child is so powerful that he can destroy the whole universe immediately. Putana's understanding is very significant. The Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna is situated in everyone's heart. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita that he gives one necessary intelligence, and he also causes one to forget. Putana was immediately aware that the child born whom she was observing in the house of Nanda Maharaj was the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. He was lying there as a small baby, but that does not mean life was less, does not mean he was less powerful. The materialistic theory that God worship is anthropomorphic is not correct. No living being can become God by undergoing meditation and or austerities. God is always God. Krishna as a baby is as complete as he is a full-fledged youth. The Mayavada theory holds that the living entity was formerly God but has now become overwhelmed by the influence of Maya. Therefore, the Mayavadis say that presently he is not God, but when the influence of Maya is taken away, he will again become God. This theory cannot be applied to the minute living entities. The living entities are minute parcels of Supreme Personality of Godhead. They are minute particles or sparks of the original fire. So these sparks can be covered by the influence of Maya, but the original fire, Krishna, cannot. Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, even from the beginning of his appearance in the house of Vasudeva and Devaki. Krishna showed the nature of a small baby and closed his eyes as if to avoid the face of Putana. This closing of the eyes is interpreted and studied in different ways by the devotees. Some say that Krishna closed his eyes because he did not like to see the face of Putana, who had killed so many children and who had now come to kill him. Others say that Putna hesitated to take the baby on her lap because something extraordinary was being dictated to her from the within, and that in order to give her assurance, Krishna closed his eyes so that she could not be frightened. She would not be frightened. And yet others interpret in this way. Krishna appeared in order to kill the demons and give protection to devotees. As stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Paritranaya sadhunam vinashyatsa dushkritam. The first demon to be killed was a woman. According to Vedic rules, the killing of a woman, a brahmana, cows, or a child is strictly forbidden. Krishna was obliged to kill the demon Putana, and because the killing of a woman is forbidden according to Vedic Shastra, he could not help but close his eyes. Another interpretation is that Krishna closed his eyes because he simply took Putana to weak his nerves. Putana came to Krishna just to offer her breast for the Lord to suck. Krishna is so merciful that even though he knew Putana was there to kill him, he took her as his nurse or mother. There are 7 kinds of mothers according to the Vedic injunction: the real mother, the wife of the teacher or spiritual master, the wife of a king, the wife of the brahmana, the cow, the nurse, and Mother Earth. Because Putna came to Krishna on her lap and because Putna came to take Krishna on her lap and offer her breast milk to be sucked by him, she was accepted by Krishna as one of his mothers. That is considered to be another reason he closed his eyes. He had to kill a nurse or mother, but his killing of his mother or nurse was not different from his love for his real mother or his real foster mother, Yashoda. We further understand from Vedic information that Putana was also treated as a mother and given the same facility as a Yashoda. As Yashoda was given liberation from material world, Putana was also given liberation. When the baby Krishna closed his eyes, Putana took him on her lap. She did not know that she was holding death personified. If a person mistakes a snake for a rope, he dies. Similarly, Putana had killed so many babies before meeting Krishna, and she mistook him to be like them, but now she was accepting the snake that would kill her immediately. When Putana was taking baby Krishna on her lap, both Yashoda and Rohini were present. But because she was so beautifully dressed and showed motherly affection toward Krishna, they did not forbid her. They could not understand that she was a sword within the decorated case. Putana had smeared a very powerful poison on her breast, and immediately after taking the baby on her lap, she pushed her breastly nipple within his mouth. She was hoping that as soon as he would suck her breast, he would die. But baby Krishna very clearly took the nipple in anger. He sucked the milk poison along with the live ear of the demon. In other words, Krishna simultaneously sucked the milk from their breast and killed her by sucking out her life. Krishna is so merciful that because the demon Putna came to offer her breast milk to him, he fulfilled her desire and accepted her activity as motherly. But to stop her from further nefarious activities, he immediately killed her. And because the demon was killed by Krishna, she got liberation. As Krishna pressed her breast extremely hard and sucked out her very breath, Putna fell down on the ground, spread her arms and legs, and began to cry, "Oh, child, leave me, leave me." She was crying loudly and perspiring, and her whole body became wet. As she died screaming, there was a tremendous vibration on the earth and in the sky, on the upper and lower planets and in all directions, and people thought that thunderbolts were falling. Thus the nightmare of the Putna witch was over, and she assumed her real feature as a great demon. She opened her fierce mouth and spread her arms and legs all over. She felt exactly as Trashura and when stuck by the but Trashura did when struck by the thunderbolt of Indra. The long hair on her head was scattered all over her body. Her fallen body extended up to 12 miles and smashed all the trees to pieces. And everyone was struck with wonder upon seeing this gigantic body. Her teeth appeared just like plows, and her nostrils appeared just like mountain caves. Her breasts appeared like small hills, and her hair was a vast reddish bush. Her eyes sockets appeared like blind wells, and her two thighs appeared like two banks of a river. Her two hands appeared like two strongly constructed bridges, and her abdomen seemed like a dried up lake. All the cowherd men and women became struck with awe and wonder upon seeing this. And the tumultuous sound of her falling shocked their brain and ears and made their hearts beat strongly. When the gopis saw little Krishna fearlessly playing on Putana's lap, they very quickly came and picked him up. Mother Yashoda, Rohini, and other elder gopis immediately performed the auspicious rituals by taking the tail of the cow and circumambulating his body. The child was completely washed with the urine of the cow, and the dust created by the hoofs of the cows was thrown all over his body. This was just to save the little Krishna from the future inauspicious accident. This incident gives us a clear indication of how important the cow is to the family, society, and the living beings instead. And to living beings in general. The transcendental body of Krishna did not require any protection, but to instruct us on the importance of the cow, the Lord was smeared over with cow dung, washed with the urine of the cow, and sprinkled with the dust upraised by the walking of the cows. After this purificatory process, the gopis, headed by Mother Yashoda and Rohini, chanted the names of Vishnu to give Krishna's body full protection from all evil influences. They washed their hands and feet and sipped water 3 times, as in the custom before chanting mantra. They chanted as follows: My dear Krishna, may the Lord who is known to as Aja protect your legs. May Lord Manman protect your knees. May Lord Yajna protect your thighs. May Lord Asyuta protect your upper waist. May Lord Hayagriva protect your abdomen. May Lord Kishava protect your heart. May Lord Isha protect your chest. May Lord Surya protect your neck. May Lord Vishnu protect your arms. May Lord Urukrama protect your face. May Lord Ishvara protect your head. May Lord Sakradhara protect your front. May Lord Gadadhara protect your back. May Lord Madhusudana who carries a bow in his hand, protect your right side. May Lord Ajana protect your left side. May Lord Urugaya with his conch shell protect you on all sides. May the personality of Godhead Upendra protect you from above. May the Lord Tark Shya protect you from on the ground. May Lord Kaladhara protect you from all sides. May the personality of Godhead known as Hrishikesha protect all your senses. May Lord Narayana protect your life and ears. May the Lord Svatadvipa Narayana protect the core of your heart. May Lord Yogeshwara protect your mind. And may Lord Krishnagarbha protect your intelligence. And may the Supreme Personality of Godhead protect your soul. While you are playing, may Lord Govinda protect you from all sides. And when you are sleeping, may Lord Madhava protect you from all danger. When you are walking, may the Lord of Vaikuntha protect you from falling down. When you are sitting, may Lord Narayana give you all protection. And while you are eating, may Lord of all sacrifices give you all protection. Thus Mother Yashoda chanted different names of Vishnu to protect child Krishna's different body parts. Mother Yashoda was firmly convinced that she should protect her child from different kinds of evil spirits and ghosts, namely Dakinis, Yatudanis, Kushmandas, Yakshas, Rakshas, Vinyakas, Kotaras, Revatis, Jia, Mother Yashoda was firmly convinced that she should protect her child from different kinds of evil spirits and ghosts, namely Dakinis, Yatudantis, Kushmandas, Yakshas, Rakshasas, Vinyakas, Kotaras, Revatis, Gyastas, Putanas, Matrakas, Unmadas, and similar other evil spirits who cause persons to forget their own existence and give trouble to the life, ears, and their senses. Sometimes they appear in dreams and cause much perturbation. Sometimes they appear as old women and suck the blood of small children. But no such ghosts and evil spirits can remain where there is chanting of the holy name of God. Mother Yashoda was firmly convinced of the Vedic injunctions about the importance of cows and the holy name of Vishnu. Therefore, she took all the shelter in the cows and the name of Vishnu, just to protect her child Krishna. She recited all the holy name of Vishnu so that he might save the child. Vedic culture has taken advantage of keeping cows and chanting the holy name of Vishnu since the beginning of history, and persons who are still following the Vedic ways, especially the householders, keep at least 1 dozen cows and worship the deity of Lord Vishnu, who is installed in their house. Persons who are advancing in Krishna consciousness should take instruction from this pastime and also be very interested in cows and the holy name of Vishnu. The elder gopis of Vrindavana were so absorbed in the affection for Krishna that they wanted to save him, although there was no need to, for he had already protected himself. They could not understand that Krishna was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, playing as a child. After performing the formalities to protect the child, Mother Yasoda took Krishna and let him suck her breast. When the child was protected by Vishnu mantra, Mother Yashoda felt that he was safe. In the meantime, all the cowherd men who had gone to Mathura to pay tax returned home and were struck with wonder at seeing the gigantic dead body of Putana. Nanda Maharaj recalled the prophecy of Vasudeva and considered him a great sage and mystic yogi. Otherwise, how could he have foretold an incident that happened during his absence from Vrindavana? After this, all the residents of Vaja cut the gigantic body of Putana into pieces and piled it up with wood for burning. When all the limbs of Putana's body were burning, the smoke emanating from the fire created a good aroma of aguru. This aroma was due to her being killed by Krishna. This means that the demon Putana was washed of all her sinful activities and attained a celestial body. Here is an example of how the Supreme Personality of Godhead is all good. Putana came to kill Krishna, but because he sucked her milk, she was immediately purified, and her dead body attained a transcendental quality. Her only business was to kill small children. She was only fond of blood, but in spite of being envious of Krishna, she attained salvation because she gave her milk to him to drink. So, what can be said of those who are affectionate to Krishna in the relationship of mother, who with great love and affection always serve him, the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the Super Soul of every living entity. It is concluded, therefore, that even a little energy expanded in the service of the Lord gives the immense transcendental profit. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita. Svalpamapi asya dharmasya trayati mahato bhayat. Devotional service in Krishna consciousness is so sublime, but even a little service rendered to Krishna, knowingly or unknowingly, gives one the greatest transcendental benefit. The system of worshipping Krishna by offering flowers from a tree is also beneficial for the living entity who is confined to the bodily existence of that tree. When flowers and fruits are offered to the Krishna, the tree that bore them also received much benefit indirectly. The archana process of worshipping procedure is therefore beneficial for everyone. Krishna is worshipable by great demigods like Brahmana and Lord Shiva, and Putana was so fortunate that the same Krishna played in her lap as little child. The lotus feet of Krishna, which are worshipped by great sages and devotees, were placed on the body of Putana. People worship Krishna and offer him food with great reverence and devotion, but he automatically sucked the milk from the body of Putana. Devotees therefore pray that simply by offering something as an enemy, Putana got so much benefit, then who can measure the benefit of worshipping Krishna in love and affection? Therefore, only Krishna should be worshipped, for so much benefit awaits in the worshipper. Although Putana was an evil spirit, she gained elevation just like the mother of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is clear that the cows and the elder gopis who offered milk to Krishna were also elevated to the transcendental position. Krishna can offer anyone anything, from liberation to anything materially conceivable. Therefore, there cannot be any doubt of the salvation of Putana, whose bodily milk was sucked by Krishna for such a long time. And now, can there be any doubt about the salvation of these gopis, who were so fond of Krishna? Undoubtedly, although the gopis, cowherd boys, cows, and everyone else who served Krishna in Vrindavan with love and affection, they are liberated from the miserable condition of material existence. When all the inhabitants of Vrindavan smelled the good aroma from the smoke of the burning Putana, they inquired from each other, where is this good fragrance coming from? And while conversing, they came to understand that was the fumes of the burning Putana. They were very fond of Krishna, and as soon as they heard that the demon Putana had been killed by Krishna, they offered blessings to the little child out of affection. After the burning of Putana, Nanda Maharaj came home and immediately took up the child on his lap and began to smell his head. In this way, he was quite satisfied that his little child was saved from this great calamity. Srila Shukadeva Goswami has given a blessing to all persons who hear the narration of the killing of Putna by Krishna. They will surely attain the favor of Govinda. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 6th chapter of Krishna, Putana Kela. Chapter 7, the salvation of Trinavarta. The Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna is always full of 6 opulences, namely complete wealth, complete strength, complete fame, complete knowledge, complete beauty, and complete renunciation. The Lord appears in different completed eternal forms of incarnation. The conditioned soul has immense opportunity to hear about the transcendental activities of the Lord in these different incarnations. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said, Janma karma samed divyam. The pastimes and activities of the Lord are not material, they are beyond material conception, and the conditioned soul can benefit by hearing such uncommon activities. Hearing is an opportunity to associate with the Lord. To hear his activities is to evoke one's transcendental nature. Simply by hearing, the conditioned soul has a natural aptitude to hear something about other conditioned souls in form of fiction, drama, or a novel. That inclination to hear something about others may be utilized in hearing pastimes of the Lord. Then one can immediately evolve his transcendental nature. Krishna's pastimes are not only beautiful, they're also very pleasing to the mind. If someone takes advantage of hearing the pastimes of the Lord, the material contamination of dust accumulated in the heart due to a long association with material nature can be immediately cleansed. The Lord Chaitanya also instructed that simply by hearing the transcendental name of Lord Krishna, one can cleanse the heart of all material contamination. There are different processes for self-realization, but this process is of devotional service, of which hearing is the most important function. Then, adopted by any conditioned soul, will automatically cleanse him of the material contamination and enable him to realize his real constitutional position. Conditional life is due to this contamination only, and as soon as it is cleared off, then naturally the dormant function of the living entity rendering service to the Lord awakens. By developing his eternal relationship with the Supreme Lord, one becomes eligible to create friendship with the devotees. Maharaj Parikshit recommended from practical experience that everyone try to hear about the transcendental passions of the Lord. This Krishna treatise is meant that for that purpose, and the reader may take advantage of it to attain the ultimate goal of human life. The Lord, out of his causeless mercy, descends to this material world and displays his activities just like an ordinary man. Unfortunately, the impersonalists or the atheistic class of men consider Krishna to be an ordinary man like themselves, and so they deride him. This is condemned in the Bhagavad Gita by the Lord himself when he says, Avajananti mam Buddha mudna. The Mudas or ask us to take Krishna to be an ordinary man or slightly more powerful man out of their great misfortune. We cannot accept him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sometimes such unfortunate persons misrepresent themselves as incarnation of Krishna without referring to the authorized scriptures. When Krishna grew up a little more, he began to turn himself backside down. He did not merely lie down on his back. And another function was observed by Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, Krishna's first birthday. The arranged for Krishna's birthday ceremony, which is still observed with all followers of the Vedic principles. Krishna's birthday ceremony is observed in India by all Hindus, irrespective of different sectarian. All the cowherd men and women were invited to participate in the jubilant celebration. A nice band played, and the assembled people enjoyed it. All the learned brahmanas. We are invited and they chanted Vedic hymns for the good fortune of Krishna. During the chanting of the Vedic hymns and playing on the bands, Krishna was bathed by Mother Yashoda. This bathing ceremony is technically called Abhisheka, and even today, this is observed in all the temples of Vrindavana on Janmashtami Day, on the, or the birthday or anniversary of Lord Krishna. On this occasion, Mother Yashoda arranged the district with a large quantity of grain, and first-class cows decorated with golden ornaments were made ready to be given in charity to the learned, respectable brahmanas. Yashoda took her bath and dressed and taking child Krishna duly dressed and bathed on her lap, she sat down to hear the Vedic hymns chanted by the Brahmanas. While Mother Yashoda was listening to the chanting of Vedic hymns, the child appeared to be falling asleep, and therefore she very silently laid him down on the bed. Being engaged in receiving all the friends, relatives, and residents of Vrindavan on their holy occasion, she forgot to feed the child milk. He was crying, being hungry, but Mother Yashoda could not hear him cry because of various noises. The child, however, became angry because he was hungry and his mother was not paying attention to him. So he lifted his legs and began to kick his lotus feet just like an ordinary child. Baby Krishna had been placed underneath a hand-driven cart, and while he was kicking his legs, he accidentally touched the wheel of the cart and it collapsed. Various kinds of utensils and dishes made of brass and other metals had been piled on the hand cart, and they all fell down with a great noise. The wheel of the cart separated from the axle, and the spokes of the wheel were all broken and scattered hither and thither. Mother Yashoda and all the gopis, as well Maharaj Nanda and the cowherd men, were astonished to how the cart could have collapsed by itself. All the men and women who were assembled for the holy function crowded around and began to suggest how the cart might have collapsed. No one could ascertain the cause, but some small children who were interested to play with baby Krishna informed the crowd that it was due to Krishna striking his feet against the wheel. They assured the crowd that they had seen how it happened with their own eyes, and they strongly asserted the point. Some were listening to the statement of the small children, but others said, "How can you believe the statements of of these children?" The cowherd men and women could not understand that the all-powerful personality of Godhead was lying there as a baby, and that he couldn't do anything. Both possible and impossible were in his power. While the discussion was going on, baby Krishna cried. Without remonstration, Mother Yashoda picked the child up on her lap and called the learned brahmanas to chant holy Vedic hymns to counteract the evil spirits. At the same time, she allowed the baby to suck her breast. If a child sucks on the mother's breast nicely, it is to be understood that he is out of all danger. After this, all the stronger cowherd men put the broken cart in order, and all the scattered things were set up nicely as before. The Brahmanas thereafter began to offer oblations of the sacrificial fire with yogurt, butter, kusha grass, and water. They worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead for the good fortune of the child. The Brahmanas who were present at the time were all qualified because they were not envious. They never indulged in untruthfulness. They were never proud. They were non-violent and they never claimed any false prestige. They were all bona fide Brahmanas, and there was no reason to think that their blessings would be useless. With firm faith in the qualified Brahmanas, Nanda Maharaj took his child on his lap and bathed him with water mixed with various herbs while the Brahmanas chanted the hymns from the Arji, Yajur, and Sama Vedas. It is said that without being a qualified Brahmana, one should not read the mantras of the Vedas. Here is the proof that the Brahmanas were qualified with all the Brahminical symptoms. Maharaj Nanda also had full faith in them. Therefore, they were allowed to perform the realistic ceremony chanting the Vedic mantras. There are many different varieties of sacrifices recommended for different purposes, but the mantras are all to be chanted by qualified brahmanas. And because of this age of Kali, just qualified brahmanas are not available. All Vedic ritualistic sacrifices are forbidden. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has therefore recommended only the kind of sacrifice in this age, namely the Sankirtanya Yagna, a chanting of Maha Mantra Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Rama.
As the Brahmanas chanted the Vedic hymns and performed the ritualistic ceremonies for the second time, Nanda Maharaja again gave them huge quantities of grains and many cows. All the cows which were given in charity were covered with nice gold, embroidered garments, and their horns were bedecked with golden rings. Their hooves were covered with silver plate, and they wore garlands of flowers. He gave so many cows just for the welfare of his wonderful child, and the Brahmanas in return bestowed their heartfelt blessings, and the blessings offered by the able Brahmanas were never to be baffled. One day, shortly after the ceremony, when Mother Yashoda was patting her baby on her lap, the baby felt too heavy, and being unable to carry him, she unwillingly placed him on the ground. After a while, she became engaged in household affairs. At that time, a servant of Kamsa's known as Trinavrata, as instructed by Kamsa, appeared there in the shape of a whirlwind. He picked the child up on his shoulders and raised a great dust storm all over Vrindavana, covering everyone's eyes. Within a few moments, the whole area of Vrindavana became so densely dark that no one could see him or anyone else. During this great catastrophe, Mother Yashoda could not see her baby, who had been taken away by the whirlwind, and she began to cry very piteously. She fell down on the ground exactly like a cow who has just lost her calf. When Mother Yashoda was so piteously crying, all the cowherd women immediately came and began to look for the baby, but they were disappointed and could not find him. The Trinavard demon went high into the sky with baby Krishna on his shoulder. But the baby assumed such a weight that suddenly he could not go any further, and he had to stop his whirlwind activities. Baby Krishna made himself heavy and began to weigh down to the demon, catching hold of his neck. Trinavrata felt the baby to be as heavy as a big mountain, and he tried to get out of his clutches, but he was unable to do so, and his eyes popped out from their sockets. Crying very fiercely, he fell down to the ground of Vrindavana and died. The demon fell exactly like Trikurasura, who was pierced by the arrow of Lord Shiva. Trinavarta hit a stone slab and his limbs were smashed. His body became visible to all the inhabitants of Vrindavan. When the gopis saw the demon killed and the child Krishna very happily playing on his body, they immediately picked Krishna up with great affection. The cowherd men and women became very happy to get back their beloved child Krishna. At that time, they began to talk about how wonderful it was that the demon had taken away the child to devour him but could not do so. Instead, he fell down dead. Some of them supported the situation. This is proper because those who are too sinful die from their sinful reactions, and the child Krishna is pious. Therefore, he is safe from all kinds of fearful situations. And we too must have performed great sacrifices in our previous lives, worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, given great wealth in charity, and acting philanthropically for the general welfare of men. Because of such pious activities, the child is safe from all danger. The gopis assembled their spokesmen among themselves. What sort of austerities and penances we must have undergone in our previous life? We must have worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead, offered different kinds of sacrifices, made charities, and performed many welfare activities for the public, such as growing banyan trees and excavating wells. As a result of these pious activities, we have gotten back our child. Even though he was supposed to be dead, now he has come back to enliven his relatives. After observing such wonderful happenings, Nanda Maharaja began to think of the words of Vasudeva again and again. After this incident, when Yashoda once was nursing her child and patting him with great affection, there streamed a profuse supply of milk from her breast. And when she opened the mouth of the child with her fingers, she suddenly saw the universal manifestation within his mouth. She saw within the mouth of Krishna the whole sky, including the luminaries, stars in all directions, the sun, moon, fire, air, seas, islands, mountains, rivers, forests, and all other movable and immovable entities. When Mother Yashoda saw this, her heart began to throb, and she murmured within herself, "How wonderful this is!" She could not express anything, but simply closed her eyes. She was absorbed in wonderful thoughts. Krishna showing the universal form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even when lying down on the lap of his mother, proves that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Whether he is manifested as a child on the lap of his mother or as a charioteer on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. The concoction of the impersonal is that one can become God by meditation or by some artificial material activities is herewith declared false. God is always God in any condition or status, and the living entities are always the parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord. They can never be equal to the inconceivable supernatural power of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the seventh chapter of Krishna, the salvation of Trinavarti. Chapter 8 Vision of the Universal Form. After this incident, Vasudeva asked his family priest Garga Muni to visit the place of Nanda Maharaja in order to astrologically calculate the future life of Krishna. Garga Muni was a great saintly sage who had undergone many austerities and penances and been appointed priest of the Yadu dynasty. When Garga Muni arrived at the home of Nanda Maharaja was very pleased to see him and immediately stood up with folded hands and offered his respectful obeisances. He received Gargamuni with the feeling of one who is worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He offered him a nice sitting place, and when he sat down, Nanda Maharaja offered him a warm reception. Addressing him very politely, he said, "My dear Brahmana, your appearance in a householder place is only to enlighten. We are always engaged in household duties and are forgetting our real duty of self realization. Your coming to our house is to give us some enlightenment about spiritual life. You have no other purpose in visiting householders. Actually, a saintly person or a brahmana has no business visiting householders who are always busy in the matter of dollars and cents. The only reason saintly persons and brahmanas go to the place of a householder is to enlighten him. If it is asked, why don't the householders go to a saintly person or a brahmana for enlightenment? The answer is that householders are very poor hearted. Generally, householders think that engaging in family affairs is their prime duty and that self realization or enlightenment in spiritual knowledge is secondary. Out of compassion, only saintly persons and brahmanas go to householders' home. Nanda Maharaja addressed Garga Muni as one of the great authorities in astrological science. The foretellings of astrological science, such as the occurrence of solar or lunar eclipse, are wonderful calculation, and by this particular science, a person can understand the future very clearly. Garga Muni was proficient in this knowledge. By this knowledge, one can also understand what his previous activities were that are causing him to enjoy or suffer in this life. Nanda Maharaja also addressed Garga Muni as the best of the Brahmanas. A Brahmana is one who is expert in the knowledge of the Supreme. Without knowledge of the Supreme Absolute, one cannot be recognized as a Brahmana. The exact word used in this connection is Brahmavidam, which means those who know the Supreme very well. An expert Brahmana is able to give reformatory facilities to the subcastes, namely the Kshatriyas and Vaishyas. The Shudras observe no reformatory performances. The Brahmana is considered to be the spiritual master or priest for the Kshatriya and Vaishya. Nanda Maharaja happened to be a Vaishya and he accepted Garga Muni as a first class Brahmana. He therefore offered his two foster sons, namely Krishna and Balarama, to him to purify. Nanda stated that not only these boys but all human beings just after birth should accept a qualified Brahmana as spiritual master. Upon this request, Garga Muni replied, Vasudeva has sent to me to see the reformatory performances of these boys, especially Krishna's. But if I do so, it may incidentally appear that Krishna is the son of Devaki, since I am Vasudeva's family priest. By his astrological calculation, Garga Muni could understand that Krishna was the son of Devaki, which Nanda did not know. Indirectly, Garga Muni said that Krishna and Balarama were both sons of Vasudeva. Balarama was known as the son of Vasudeva because his mother Rohini was present here, but Nanda Maharaja did not know about Krishna. Gargamuni indirectly disclosed the fact that Krishna was the son of Devaki. Gargamuni also warned Nanda Maharaja that if he would perform the reformatory ceremony, then Kamsa, who was naturally very sinful, would understand that Krishna was the son of Devaki and Vasudeva. According to astrological calculation, Devaki could not have a female child, although everyone thought that the eighth child of Devaki was female. In this way, Gargamuni intimated to Nanda Maharaja that the female child was born of Yashoda and that Krishna was born of Devaki. They were exchanged. Also, the female child, Durga, had informed Kamsa that the child who would kill him was already born somewhere else. Gargamuni stated, if I give your child a name and if he fulfills the prophecy of the female child to Kamsa, then it may be that the sinful demon will come and kill this child also after the name giving ceremony. But I do not want to become responsible for all these future calamities. On hearing the words of Gargamuni, Nanda Maharaja said, if there is such danger, then it is better not to plan any gorgeous name giving ceremony. It would be better for you to simply chant the Vedic hymns and perform the purificatory process. We belong to the twice born caste, and I am taking this opportunity of your presence. So please perform the name given ceremony without external pomp. Nanda Maharaja wanted to keep the name giving ceremony a secret and yet take advantage of Garga Muni's performing the ceremony. When Garga Muni was so eagerly requested by Nanda Maharaja, he performed the name giving ceremony as secretly as possible in the cowshed of Nanda Maharaja. He informed Nanda Maharaja that the son of Rohini would be very pleasing to his family members and relatives and therefore would be called Rama. In the future, he would be extraordinarily strong and therefore would be called Baladeva. Gargamuni said, Further, because your family and the family of the Yadus are so intimately connected and attracted, his name will also be Sankarshana. This means that Gargamuni awarded three names to the son of Rohini, namely Balarama, Sankarshana, and Baladeva. But he carefully did not disclose the fact that Balarama had also appeared in the womb of Devaki and was subsequently transferred to the womb of Rohini. Krishna and Balarama are real brothers, being originally sons of Devaki. Gargamuni then informed Nanda Maharaja, as far as your son is concerned, this child has taken different bodily complexions in different yugas, millennia. First of all, he assumed the color white. Okay. Then the color red and then the color yellow, and now he has assumed the color black. Besides that, he was formerly the son of Vasudeva. Therefore, his name should be Vasudeva as well as Krishna. Some people will call him Krishna and some will call him Vasudeva. But one thing you must know, this son has had many other names and activities due to his different pastimes. Gaurav?
How long do I leave?
Mataji will tell you because the boy is very unique. So maybe she will tell you in the story.
Gargamuni further hinted to Nanda Maharaja that his son would also be called Giridhari because of his uncommon pastime of lifting Govardhana hill. Since Gargamuni was an astrologer, he could understand everything past, present. He could understand everything past and future. And thus he said, I know everything about his activities and names, but others do not know. This child will be very pleasing to all the cowherd men and cows, being very popular in Vrindavana. Being very popular in Vrindavana, he will be the cause of all good fortune for you. Because of his presence, you will overcome all kinds of material calamities, despite opposing elements. Gargamuni continued to say, my dear King of Raja, in his previous verse, this child many times protected righteous persons from the hands of rogues and thieves whenever there was political disruption. Your child is so powerful that anyone who will become a devotee of your boy will never be troubled by enemies, just as demigods are always protected by Lord Vishnu. The devotees of your child will always be protected by Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This child will grow in power, beauty, opulence, in everything on the level of Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, I would advise that you protect him very carefully so that he may grow without disturbance. In other words, Gargamuni informed Nanda Maharaja that because he was a great devotee of Lord Narayana, the Lord had given him a son equal to himself. At that same time, Gargamuni indicated that his son would be disturbed by so many demons and that Nanda should therefore be careful and protect him. In this way, Gargamuni convinced Nanda Maharaja that Narayana himself had become his son. In various ways, he described the transcendental qualities of his son. After giving this information, Gargamuni returned to his home. Nanda Maharaja began to think of himself as the most fortunate person, and he was very satisfied to receive such a benediction in this way. A short time after this incident, both Balarama and Krishna began to crawl on their hands and knees. When they were fine like that, they pleased their mothers. The bells tied to their waists and ankles sounded fascinating, and they would move around very pleasingly. Sometimes, just like ordinary children, they would be frightened by others and would immediately hurry to their mothers for protection. Sometimes they would fall into the clay and mud of Vrindavana and would approach their mothers smeared with clay and saffron. They were actually smeared with saffron and sandalwood both by their mothers, but due to crawling over muddy clay, they would simultaneously smear their bodies with clay. As soon as they would come crawling to their mothers, Yashoda and Rohini would take them on their laps, encouraging them with the lower portion of their saris, allow them to suck their breasts. The babies were sucking their breasts. The mothers would see small teeth coming in. Thus, their joy would be intensified to see their children grow. Sometimes the naughty babies would crawl up to the cow shed, catch the tail of a cow, and stand up. The cows, being disturbed, would immediately begin running here and there, and the children would be dragged over clay and cow dung. To see this fun, Yashoda and Rohini would call all their neighborhood friends, the gopis. Upon seeing these childhood pastimes of Lord Krishna, the gopis would be merged in transcendental bliss. In their enjoyment, they would laugh very loudly. Krishna and Balarama were so restless that their mothers Yashoda and Rohini would try to protect them from cows, wolves, monkeys, water, fire, and birds while they were executing their household duties. Always being anxious to protect the children and to execute their duties, they were not very tranquil. In a very short time, Krishna and Balarama began to stand up and slightly move on their legs. When Krishna and Balarama began to walk, other friends of the same age joined them, and together they gave the highest transcendental pleasure to the gopis, specifically to Mother Yashoda and Rohini. All the gopi friends of Yashoda and Rohini enjoyed the naughty, childish activities of Krishna and Balarama in Vrindavana. In order to enjoy further transcendental bliss, they all assembled and went to Mother Yashoda to lodge complaints against the restless boys. When Krishna was sitting before Mother Yashoda, all the elder gopis began to lodge complaints against him so that Krishna could hear. They said, "Dear Yashoda, why don't you restrict your naughty Krishna? He comes to our houses along with Balarama every morning and evening, and before the milking of the cows, they let loose the cows, and the cows drink all the milk of the cows. So when we go to milk the cows, we find no milk, and when we have to return with empty pots." If we warn Krishna and Balarama about doing this, they simply smile so charmingly that we cannot do anything. Also, here Krishna and Balarama find great pleasure in stealing our stock of yogurt and butter from wherever we keep it. When Krishna and Balarama are caught stealing the yogurt and butter, they say, "Why do you charge us with stealing? Do you think that butter and yogurt are in scarcity in our house?" Sometimes they steal butter, yogurt, and milk and distribute them into the monkeys. When the monkeys are well fed and do not take any more, then your boys chide. This milk and butter and yogurt are useless. Even the monkeys won't take it. And they break the pots and throw them hither and thither. If we keep our stock of yogurt, butter, and milk in a solitary dark place, where Krishna and Balarama find it in the darkness by the glaring effulgence of the ornaments and jewels on their bodies. If by chance they cannot find the hidden butter and yogurt, they go to our little babies and pinch their bodies so that they cry, and then they go away. If out of fear of these naughty boys, we keep our stock of butter and yogurt high on the ceiling, hanging on a swing, although it is beyond their reach, they arrange to reach it by piling all kinds of wooden planks over the grinding machine. And if they cannot reach, they make a hole in a pot. We think, therefore, that you better take all the jeweled ornaments from the bodies of your children. On hearing this, Yashoda would say, "All right, I will take all the jewels from Krishna so that he cannot see the butter hidden in the darkness." Then the gopis would say, No, don't do this. What good will you do by taking away the jewels? We do not know what kind of boys these are, but even without ornaments, they spread some kind of effulgence so that even in darkness, they can see everything. Then Mother Yashoda would inform them, "All right, keep your butter and yogurt carefully so that they may not reach it." In reply to this, the gopi said, "Yes, actually we do so, but because we are sometimes engaged in our household duties, these naughty boys enter our house somehow or other and spoil everything. Sometimes, being unable to steal our butter and yogurt, out of anger, they pass urine on the clean floor and sometimes spit on it. Now, just see how your boy is hearing these complaints. All day, he simply makes arrangements to steal our butter and yogurt, and now he is sitting just like a very silent good boy. Just see his face." When Mother Yashoda thought to chastise her boy after hearing all the complaints, she saw his pitiable face and smiling. She did not chastise him. Another day, when Krishna and Balarama were playing with their friends, all the boys joined Balarama and complained to Mother Yashoda that Krishna had eaten clay. On hearing this, Mother Yashoda caught hold of Krishna's hand and said, "My dear Krishna, why have you eaten earth in a solitary place? Just see, all your friends, including Balarama, are complaining about you. Being afraid of his mother, Krishna replied, my dear mother, all these boys, including my elder brother Balarama, are speaking lies against me. I have never eaten any clay. My elder brother Balarama, while playing with me today, became angry, and therefore he has joined with the other boys to complain against me. They have all combined together to complain, so you will be angry and chastise me. If you think they are truthful, then you can look within my mouth to see whether I have eaten clay or not. His mother replied, all right, if you have actually not eaten any clay, then just open your mouth. I shall see. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, was so ordered by his mother, he immediately opened his mouth just like an ordinary boy. Then Mother Yashoda saw within that mouth the complete opulence of creation. She saw the entire outer space in all directions, mountains, islands, oceans, seas, planets, air, fire, moon, and stars. Along with the moon and the stars, she also saw all the elements, water, sky, and the extensive ethereal existence, along with the total ego and its products, namely the senses, the controllers of the senses, all the demigods and the objects of the senses, like sound and smell. Within his mouth, she also saw the three qualities of material nature, all living entities, eternal time, material nature, spiritual nature, activity, consciousness, and different forms of the whole creation. Yashoda could find within the mouth of her child everything necessary for cosmic manifestation. She also saw within his mouth herself taking Krishna on her lap and having him suck her breast. Upon seeing all this, she became struck with awe and began to wonder whether she were dreaming or actually seeing something extraordinary. She concluded that she was either dreaming or seeing the play of the illusory energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. She thought that she had become mad, mentally deranged, to see all those wonderful things. Then she thought, it may be cosmic mystic power attained by my child, and therefore I am perplexed by such visions within his mouth. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is beyond the expression of consciousness, mind, work, and philosophical speculation, and whose different energies produce everything manifested and unmanifested. Under his energy, bodily self and bodily possessions are conceived. She then said, let me offer my respectful obeisances unto him under whose illusory energy I am thinking that Nanda Maharaja is my husband and Krishna is my son, that all the properties of Nanda Maharaja belong to me, and that all the cowherd men and women are my subjects. All this misconception is due to the illusory energy of the Supreme Lord. So let me pray to him that he may protect me always. While Mother Yashoda was speaking in this high philosophical way, Lord Krishna again expanded his internal energy just to bewilder her with maternal affection. Immediately, Mother Yashoda forgot all philosophical speculation and accepted Krishna as her own child. She took him on her lap and became overwhelmed with maternal affection. She thus began to think of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is understood through the process of cultivating knowledge derived from Upanishads and a Vedanta Sutra, practicing mystic yoga, and studying Sankhya philosophy as her own begotten child. Certainly, Mother Yashoda had executed many pious activities, as a result of which she got the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as her son who sucked milk from her breast. Similarly, Nanda Maharaja also must have performed many great sacrifices and pious activities for Lord Krishna to become his son and address him as father. But it is surprising that Vasudeva and Devaki did not enjoy the transcendental bliss of Krishna's childhood pastimes. Although Krishna was their real son, the childhood pastimes of Krishna are glorified even today by many sages and saintly persons. But Vasudeva and Devaki could not enjoy such childhood pastimes personally. The reason for this was explained by Shukadeva Goswami to Maharaja Parikshit as follows. When the best son of Vasus, namely Drona and his wife Dara, were ordered to increase progeny by Lord Brahma, they said unto him, Dear father, we are seeking your benediction. When we take birth again within the universe, and the Supreme Lord Krishna and his most attractive creature of childhood absorb our whole attention, may our dealings with him be so powerful that simply by hearing of these childhood activities of his, Anyone will very easily cross over the nations of birth and death. Lord Brahma agreed to give them the benediction. And as a result, the same Drona appeared as Nanda Maharaja in Vrindavana, and the same Dara appeared as Mother Yashoda, the wife of Nanda Maharaja. In this way, Nanda Maharaja and his wife, Mother Yashoda, developed their unallied devotion for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, having gotten him as their son. And all the gopis and cowherd men were associates of Krishna, naturally developed their own different feelings of love for Krishna. Therefore, just to fulfill the benediction of Lord Brahma, Lord Krishna appeared along with his plenary expansion, Balarama, and performed all kinds of childhood pastimes in order to increase the transcendental pleasure of all the residents of Vrindavana. Yeah. Mhm.
You read this also.
Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 8th chapter of Krishna, Vision of the Universal Form.
It's fine. Chapter 9. Mother Yashoda binds Lord Krishna. Once upon a time, seeing that her maidservant was engaged in different household duties, Mother Yashoda personally took charge of churning butter. And while she churned butter, she sang the childhood pastimes of Krishna and enjoyed thinking of her son. The end of her sari was tightly wrapped while she churned, and on account of her intense love for her son, milk automatically dripped from her breasts, which moved as she labored very hard, churning with 2 hands. The bangles and bracelets on her hands tinkled as they touched each other, and her earrings and her breast shook. There were drops of perspiration on her face, and the flower garland which was on her head scattered here and there. Before this picturesque sight, Lord Krishna appeared as a child. He felt hungry, and to increase his mother's love, he wanted her to stop churning. He felt that her first business was to let him suck her breast, and then she could churn butter later. Mother Yashoda took her son on her lap and pushed the nipple of her breast into his mouth. And while Krishna was sucking the milk, she was smiling, enjoying the beauty of her child's face. Suddenly, the milk which was on the stove began to boil over. Just to stop the milk from spilling, Mother Yashoda at once put Krishna aside and went to the stove. Left in that state by his mother, Krishna became very angry. His lips and eyes became red in rage. He pressed his teeth and lips, and taking up a piece of stone, he immediately broke the butter pot. He took butter out of it, and with false tears in his eyes, he began to eat the butter in a secluded place. In the meantime, Mother Yashoda returned to the churning place after setting the overflowing milk pan in order. She saw the broken pot in which the churning yogurt had been kept. Since she could not find her boy, she concluded that the broken pot was his work. She smiled as she thought, "This child is very clever." After breaking the pot, he has left this place, fearing punishment. After she sought all over, she found her son sitting on a big wooden grinding loader, which was kept upside down. He was taking butter from a pot, which was hanging from the ceiling on a swing, and he was feeding it to the monkeys. She saw Krishna looking this way and that way in fear of her because he was conscious of his naughty behavior. After seeing her son so engaged, she very silently approached him from behind. Krishna, however, saw her coming toward him with a stick in his hand. He immediately got down from the grinding motor and began to flee in fear. Mother Yashoda chased him to all corners, trying to capture the Supreme personality of Godhead, who is never approached even by the meditation of great yogis. In other words, Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, who is never caught by the yogis and speculators, was playing just like a little child for such a great devotee like Mother Yashoda. Mother Yashoda, however, could not easily catch the fast-running child because of her thin waist and heavy body. Still, she tried to follow him as fast as possible. Her hair loosened, and the flowers in her hair fell to the ground. Although she was tired, he somehow reached her naughty child and captured him. When he was caught, Krishna was almost at the point of crying. He smeared his hands over his eyes, which were anointed with black eye cosmetics. The child saw his mother's face while she stood over him, and his eyes became restless from fear. Mother Yashoda could understand that Krishna was unnecessarily afraid, and for his benefit, she wanted to ally his fears. Being the topmost well-wisher of her child, Mother Yashoda thought, if the child is too fearful of me, I don't know what will happen to him. Mother Yashoda then threw away her stick. In order to punish him, she thought to bind his hands with some ropes. She did not know, but it was actually impossible to bind the Supreme Lord. Bind the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Mother Yashoda was thinking that Krishna was her tiny child. But she did not know that her child had no limitation. There is no inside or outside of him, nor beginning or end. He's unlimited and all-pervading. Indeed, he is himself the whole cosmic manifestation. Still, Mother Yashoda was thinking of Krishna as her child. Although he is beyond the reach of senses, she endeavored to bind him with a wooden grinding motor. But when she tried to bind him, she found that the rope she was using was too short by 2 inches. She gathered more ropes from the house and added to it, but she still found the same shortness. In this way, she connected all the ropes available at home, but when the final knot was added, she saw that the rope was still 2 inches too short. Mother Yashoda was smiling, but she was astonished. How was it happening? In attempting to bind her son, she became tired. She was perspiring, and the garland on her head fell down. Lord Krishna then appreciated the hard labor of his mother, and being compassionate upon her, he agreed to be bound by the ropes. Krishna, playing as a human child in the house of Mother Yashoda, was performing his own selected pastimes. Of course, no one can control the Supreme Personality of God. The pure devotee surrenders himself unto the lotus feet, who may either protect or vanquish the devotee. But for his part, the devotee never forgets his own position of surrender. Similarly, the Lord also feels transcendental pleasure by submitting himself to the protection of the devotee. This was exemplified by Krishna's surrender unto his mother Yashoda. Krishna is the supreme bestower of all kinds of liberation to his devotees, but the benediction which was bestowed on upon Mother Yashoda was never experienced even by Lord Brahma or Shiva or the goddess of fortune. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is known as the son of Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj, is never so completely known to the yogis and speculators, but he is easily available to his devotees. Nor is he appreciated as a supreme reservoir of all pleasure by the yogis and speculators. After binding her son, Mother Yashoda engaged herself in the household affairs. At that time, bound up to the wooden motor, Krishna could see a pair of trees before him, which were known as the Arjuna trees. The great reservoir of pleasure, Lord Sri Krishna thus thought to himself, Mother Yashoda first of all left without feeding me sufficient milk, and therefore I broke upon yogurt and disturbed the stock of butter in charity to the monkeys. Now she has bound me up to a wooden motor, so I shall do something more. I shall do something more mischievous than before. and thus he thought of pulling down the two very tall Arjuna trees. There is a history behind these pair of Arjuna trees. In their previous life, the trees were born as the human sons of Kuvera, and their names were Nala Kuvera and Manigriva. Fortunately, they came within the vision of the Lord. In their previous life, they were cursed by a great sage Narada in order to receive the highest benediction of seeing Lord Krishna. This benediction curse was bestowed upon them because of their forgetfulness due to intoxication. This story will be narrated in the next chapter. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the ninth chapter of Krishna. Mother Yashoda finds Lord Krishna. Can I continue?
You can continue for 5 minutes.
Okay. Okay. Chapter 10, The Deliverance of Navala Kuvera and Manigriva. The story of the cursing of Navala Kuvera and Manigriva and their deliverance by Krishna under the all blissful desire of the great sage Narada is here described. The two great demigods, Nala Kuvera and Manigriva, were sons of the treasurer of the demigods, Kuvera, who was a great devotee of Lord Shiva. But by the grace of Lord Shiva, Kuvera's material opulences had no limit. As a rich man's sons often became addicted to wine and women, so these two sons of Kuvera were also addicted to wine and sex. Once the two demigods, desiring to enjoy, they entered the garden of Lord Shiva in the province of Kailasha. On the bank of the Mandaki rivers, they drank so much and engaged in hearing the sweet singing of the beautiful woman who accompanied them in that garden of fragrant flowers. In an intoxicated condition, the two demigods entered the water of the Ganges, which was filled with lotus flowers, and there they began to enjoy the company of young girls exactly like as a male elephant enjoys the female elephants within the water. While they were thus enjoying themselves in the water, all of a sudden Narada, the great sage, happened to pass that way. He could understand that the demigods with Nalakira and Manigriva were too much intoxicated and could not even see that he was passing. The young girls, however, were not so much intoxicated as demigods, and they at once became ashamed of themselves at being naked before the great sage Narada. They began to cover themselves with all haste. The two demigod sons of Kuera were so much intoxicated that they could not appreciate the presence of sage Narada and therefore did not cover their bodies. On seeing the two demigods being on seeing the two demigods so degraded by intoxication, Narada desired their welfare, and therefore he exhibited his causeless mercy upon them by cursing them. Because the great sage was compassionate upon them, he wanted to finish their false enjoyment of intoxication and association with young girls, and wanted them to see Lord Krishna face to face. He conceived of cursing them as follows. He said that the attraction for material enjoyment is due to an increase of the modes of passion. A person in the material world, when favored by the material opulences of riches, generally becomes addicted to three things: intoxication, sex, and gambling. Materially opulent men, being puffed up with the accumulation of wealth, also become so merciless that they indulge in killing animals by opening slaughterhouses, and they think that they will themselves will never die. Such foolish persons, forgetting the laws of nature, become overly infatuated with the body. They forget the material body, even though very much advanced in civilization, up to the position of the demigods, will finally turn into ashes or stool. And while one is living, whatever the external condition of the body may be, there is only stool, urine, and various kinds of worms. Thus, being engaged in jealousy and and violence to other bodies, materialists cannot understand the ultimate goal of life. And without knowing this goal of life, they generally glide down to the hellish condition in their next life. Such foolish persons commit all sinful activities on the account of the temporary body. And they are even unstable to consider whether the body actually belongs to them. Generally, it is said that the body belongs to the persons who feed it. One might therefore consider whether the body belongs to the person, body belongs to the one personally or to the master of to whom one renders service. The master of slaves claims full right to the body of slaves because the master feeds the slaves. And it may also be questioned whether the body belongs to the father, who is the seed-giving master of the body, or to the mother, who develops the child body in the womb.
Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Kishori ki jai. Foolish persons are engaged in committing all sorts of sins due to the misconception of identifying the material body with the self. But one should be intelligent enough to understand to whom the body belongs. A foolish person indulges in killing animals to maintain the body, but he does not consider whether the body belongs to him or to his father or mother or maternal grandfather. Sometimes a father gives his daughter a charitable person with the view of getting back the daughter's child as a son. The body may also belong to a stronger man who forces it to work for him. Sometimes a slave's body is sold to a master, and from that day on, the body belongs to the master. At the end of life, the body belongs to the fire, because the body is given to the fire and burned to ashes, or the body is thrown into the street to be eaten by the dogs and vultures. Before committing all kinds of sins to maintain the body, one should understand to whom the body belongs. Ultimately, it is concluded that the body is a product of material nature, and in the end, it emerges into material nature. Therefore, the conclusion should be that the body belongs to material nature. One should not wrongly think that the body belongs to him. To maintain a false position, why should one indulge in killing? Why should one kill innocent animals to maintain the body? When a man is infatuated with false prestige and opulence, he does not care for any moral instruction, but indulges in wine, women, and animal killing. In such circumstances, a poverty-stricken man is often better situated because a poor man thinks of himself in relation to other bodies. A poor man often does not wish to inflict injuries upon other bodies because he can understand more readily that when he himself is injured, he feels pain. Therefore, the great sage Narada considered that because the demigods, Nalakuvira and Manipura, were so infatuated by false prestige, they should be put into a condition of life devoid of opulence. A person who is pinpricked in his body does not wish others to be pinpricked by pins. A considerate man in the life of poverty does not wish others to also be put into that condition. Generally, it is seen that one who has risen from a poverty-stricken life and become wealthy creates some charitable institution at the end of his life, so that other poverty-stricken men might be benefited. In short, a compassionate poor man may consider others' pains and pleasures with empathy. A poor man is seldom puffed up with false prestige, and he may be freed from all kinds of infatuation. He may remain satisfied by whatever he gets for his maintenance by the grace of the Lord. To remain in the poverty-stricken condition is a kind of austerity. According to Vedic culture, therefore, the Brahmanas, as a matter of routine, keep themselves in a poverty-stricken condition to save themselves from the false prestige of material opulence. False prestige due to advancement of material prosperity is a great impediment for spiritual emancipation. A poverty-stricken man cannot become naturally fat by eating more and more, and on account of not being able to eat more than he requires. His senses are not very turbulent. When the senses are not very turbulent, he cannot become violent. He cannot become violent. Another advantage of poverty is that a saintly man can easily enter a poor man's house, and thus the poor man can take advantage of the saintly person's association. A very opulent man does not allow anyone to enter his house. Therefore, the saintly person cannot enter. According to the Vedic system, a saintly person takes the position of a mendicant, so that on the plea of begging something from the householder, he can enter any house. A householder who has usually forgotten everything about spiritual advancement because he is busy maintaining family affairs can be benefited by the association of a saintly person. There is a great chance for the poor man to become liberated through association with the saint. For what use are persons who are propped up with material opulence and prestige? If they are bereft of the association of saintly persons and devotees of the supreme personality of God. The great sage Narada therefore thought that it was his duty to put those demigods into a condition where they can be falsely proud of their material opulence and prestige. Narada was compassionate and wanted to save them from their fallen life. They were in the mood of darkness, and being therefore unable to control their senses, they were addicted to sex life. It was the duty of a saintly person like Narada to save them from their abominable condition. In animal life, the animal has no sense to understand that he is naked. But Kuvera was the treasurer of the demigods, a very responsible man. And Nalakumera and Manigriva were two of his sons. And yet they became so animalistic and irresponsible that they could not understand due to intoxication that they were naked. To cover the lower part of the body is a principle of human civilization. And when men and women forget this principle, they become no better than animals. Narada therefore thought that the best punishment for them was to make them immovable living entities or trees. Trees are by nature's law immovable. Although trees are covered by the molds of their leaves, they cannot do harm. The great sage Narada thought it fit that although the brothers would be punished by to become trees, by his mercy they would continue to keep their memory and be able to know why they were being punished. After changing the body, a living entity generally forgets its previous life. But in special cases, by the grace of the Lord, as with Nalakudera and Manideva, one can remember. Sage Narada therefore contemplated that the two demigods should remain for 100 years in the tongue of the demigods in the form of trees. And after that, they will be fortunate enough to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face by His causeless mercy. And thus they would be again promoted to the life of the demigods and become great devotees of the Lord. After this, the great sage Narada returned to his abode, known as Narayanashram, and the two demigods turned into trees, known as twin Arjun trees. The two demigods were favored by the causeless mercy of Narada and given a chance to grow in Nanda's courtyard and see Lord Krishna face to face. Although child Krishna was bound up to the grand wooden model, they began to proceed towards the twin trees in order to fulfill the prophecy of his great devotee, Narada. Lord Krishna knew that Narada was his great devotee and that the trees standing before him as twin Arjun trees were actually the sons of Kuvera. I must now fulfill the words of my great devotee Narada, he thought. Then he proceeded through the passage between the two trees. Although he was able to pass through the passage, the large wooden mortar stuck horizontally between the trees. Taking advantage of this, the great strength, Lord Krishna, began to pull the rope, which was tied to the mortar. As soon as he pulled, the two trees, with their branches and limbs, fell down with a great sound. Out of the fallen, broken trees came two great personalities shining like blazing fire. All sides became illuminated and beautiful by their presence. The two purified personalities immediately came before child Krishna and bowed down to offer their respects and prayers in the following words. Dear Lord Krishna, you are the original personality of Godhead, master of all mystic powers. Learned Brahmanas know very well that this cosmic manifestation is an expansion of your potencies, which are sometimes manifest and sometimes unmanifest. You are the original provider of life, body, and senses for all living entities. You are the eternal God, Lord Vishnu, who is all pervading and the imperishable controller of everything. And you are eternal time. You are the original source of the cosmic manifestation, which is acting under the spell of the three modes of material nature: goodness, passion, and ignorance. You're living as the super soul in all the multi forms of living entities. And you know very well what's going on within their bodies and minds. Therefore, you are the supreme director of all activities of all living entities. But although you are in the midst of everything which is under the spell of material modes of nature, you are not affected by such contaminated qualities. No one under the jurisdiction of the material modes can understand your transcendental qualities, which existed before creation. Therefore, you are called supreme transcendence. Let us offer our respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of you, Lord Vasudeva, the supreme Brahman, who is always glorified by your personal internal potencies. In this material world, you make yourself known only by different incarnations. Although you assume different types of bodies, these bodies are not parts of the material creation. They're always full of transcendental potencies of unlimited opulence, strength, beauty, pain, wisdom, and renunciation. In the material existence, there is a difference between the body and the owner of the body. But because you appear in your uncommon activities, indicate that you are the supreme personality of Godhead. Such uncommon activities are not possible for anyone in material existence. You, the supreme personality of Godhead, cause birth and death, as well as the liberation of the living entities. And you are full of all plenary expansions. You can bestow on everyone all kinds of benedictions. O Lord, O source of all auspiciousness and goodness, we offer a respectful obeisances unto you. You are the all-pervading supreme personality of God, the supreme source of peace, and the supreme personality and the destiny of King Yadu. O Lord, our Father, known as Kubera, the demigod, is your servant. Similarly, the great sage Narada is also your servitor, and only by their grace have we been able to see your personally. We therefore pray that we may always be engaged in your transcendental loving service by speaking only about your glories and hearing about your transcendental activities. May our hands and other limbs be engaged in your service, and our minds always be concentrated at your lotus feet, and our heads always bow down before the all pervading universal form of your Lordship. When the demigods, Nalagundera and Manigriva, finished their prayers, the child of Krishna, the master and proprietor of Gokula, bound to the wooden grinding bottle by the ropes of Yashoda, smiled and said, "It was already known to me that my great devotee Narad Muni had shown his causeless mercy by saving you from the abominable condition of pride due to possessing extraordinary beauty and opulence in a family of demigods. He has saved you from gliding down into the lowest condition of hellish life. All these facts are already known to me. You are very fortunate because not only were you cursed by him, but you had the great opportunity to see him. If someone is able, by chance, to see face to face a great saintly person like Narada, who's always serene and merciful to everyone,
then immediately that conditioned soul becomes liberated. This is exactly like being situated in the full light of the sun. There cannot be any visionary impediment. Therefore, O Nalakuvera and Manivira, your lives have now become successful because you have developed ecstatic love for me. This is your last word within material existence. Now you can go back to your father's residence in the heavenly planets, and by remaining in the attitude of devotional service, you will be liberated in this very life. After this, the demigods circumambulated the Lord many, many times and bowed down before him again and again, and thus they left. The Lord remained bound up with ropes to the grinding mortal. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 10th chapter of Krishna, the deliverance of Nalakuvera and Manideva. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Is it now? Yeah, from 4 o'clock.